Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Neutron Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 6 of the Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Jimmy on Ice / Battle of the Band. So, how does Jimmy on Ice start out? Well, it's a scorcher of a day in Retroville, and basically Jimmy and his friends are basically melting alive. Their only means of trying to cool off, unfortunately, are a little tiny fan that Goddard has and Cindy and Libby's pool, which they can't use unless they admit that girls are basically the bestest forever and ever and all that crap. And Jimmy, being a prideful sort, won't let his friends admit that. As such, in a way to try and find a way around this, or a way out of this heat, he gets inspiration from Carl's sunblock, SPF 50, as he believes that if he can quantum enhance it to SPF 9000, he can basically block out the sun across all of Retroville, and thus nobody has to basically just has to burn alive. As such, he takes the sunblock back to his lab, does the aforementioned quantum enhancing, and then puts the sunblock in a rocket and launches it into the stratosphere above Retroville. And sure enough, doing this causes basically a bunch of clouds to form all over the town, and well, it starts snowing in the middle of Retroville. And at first, it seems fine as Jimmy and his friends are playing in the snow, goofing off. It just seems like it's just a snow day. Although what I love is that Cindy is so it's basically she's just, hold on one second, I'm blanking on the word. Sorry. Cindy is just so stubborn about not giving in to Jimmy's demands as much as Jimmy doesn't want to give in to her demands, that even in the middle of this freezing weather, she refuses to leave her pool, while Libby is out just throwing snowballs at the guys. Unfortunately, though, what starts out as a seemingly nice snow day quite literally goes to hell overnight, as overnight the temperature drops from 20 degrees to 30 below, and the entire town is just frozen over. It's basically caused a town-wide blackout. All pipes are frozen, and basically everybody is just kind of freezing in their own homes. And unfortunately, it's causing people to start kind of reverting mentally into a more tribalistic mindset, especially which is exemplified when Hugh ends up pulling out a spear and says that he and a bunch of other dads are going to go out and hunt caribou so that their families can have food on the table. And unfortunately, it goes from bad to worse, as when Jimmy goes to his school, it turns out when he goes to his school, the kids end up turning against him because, one, Carl and Sheen let slip that this is all Jimmy's fault, and basically all the kids in there since they're, like I said, reverting to more primitive mindsets, think that if they sacrifice Jimmy to the glacier, and maybe that'll cause the glacier to be satisfied and leave Retroville alone. It's obviously a dumb plan, and even Miss Fowl thinks it's stupid, but the dropping temperatures cause her to kind of she kind of goes along with the crazy as a result. As such, Jimmy runs away from them, and he ends up unfortunately having to run away from his dad, as he and the other dads end up mistaking Jimmy for a caribou. But he ends up running into Carl, and Carl says that he's basically trying to hunker down for the winter, try and bulk up and just hibernate throughout all this, and basically just inherit Retroville after everything's cooled down. However, in the middle of this conversation, I forget what brings it up. Oh yeah, Carl says basically Carl says that when he's done hibernating, his sunburn will be gone. But Jimmy's like, wait, I thought you had sunblock. And Carl admits that, well, he sweated it off, as apparently his sunblock is not waterproof. And as such, Jimmy thinks he's found the solution. If he can send enough moisture into the air, it should dissipate all the clouds he created, and thus basically get Retroville all nice and warm again. Unfortunately, though, all water sources around Retroville are just frozen. That I'm sorry, I'm blanking on words again, I'm sorry. He can't use a hydrant because, again, all water sources are flooded, and while Cindy is still stubbornly in her pool, Jimmy can't use any of the water there because it's also frozen, and when he tries getting water from his house, again, pipe's frozen, can't do anything. As such, Jimmy, of course, has a brain blast that'll finally gives him the answer he wants, as he remembers what Carl said about, sweating it all off, and he realizes that sweat's the answer. It's basically a higher the freezing temperature of sweat is much greater than water, so it should be enough to actually dissipate it, but he needs a lot of sweat, and as such, he calls Carl and two other husky guys over to his house, and he basically puts them in 3 buckets, which are hooked up to a giant spray can. Don't ask me where he got that. I don't know where the hell he got that. Why is it in a show about a kid who has a lab under his house? This is the thing I'm finding the most hard to believe. Whatever. But basically, with the help of Miss Fowl, who provides a drum beat, or a tribal drum beat, these guys end up basically working themselves up and just basically sweating up enough that all the sweat ends up accumulating into the giant spray can, and as such, all it takes is Jimmy jumping on top of the can, and, well, it sends the perspiration out across Retroville and dissipates the clouds. And as such, Retroville is saved, everything's all good, everyone's got the sun back, and now the only problem that they have to deal with is B.O. because Carl and the other two husky guys apparently are stinky, so go figure. But anyway, that leads us to Battle of the Band, and what's going on in this segment is that the Retroville Elementary is having a talent show at the end of the week. And, well, it's not just a regular talent show, it's also a talent contest, and whoever has the best performance will get a solid gold first place trophy. As such, Jimmy and his friends are honestly excited to go, as they each have a talent they each want to display. As Sheen wants to spit water, Carl wants to blow snot bubbles, and Jimmy wants to recite algebra in, I think it's either French or I forgot what the other one was. I think it's algebra and French. Don't quote me on that, though. However, Cindy and Libby, being Cindy and Libby, and the fact that Jimmy and her constantly butt heads, or Jimmy and Cindy constantly butt heads, have their own act that they want to do for the talent show. In this case, it's river stomping, and they are damn good at it, which they demonstrate right there in the cafeteria, which they demonstrate right in front of Jimmy and his friends. As such, Jimmy and Co are like, oh shit, that's a good performance, and Cindy, being Cindy, immediately just rubs it in Jimmy's face that whatever he and his friends have planned is just gonna suck in comparison to what they're doing. As such, Jimmy, in an attempt to one-up them, says that they do have an act that could beat them. In this case, he says that he and his friends have a band, which he gets inspiration by seeing a boy band poster on a wall. As such, Cindy and Libby are in disbelief of that, but once they're out of earshot, even Carl and Sheen are like, wait, we don't have a band. But Jimmy says he has a way of countering this, and as such, we cut to later in Jimmy's garage, and it turns out that Jimmy has made himself, Carl, and Sheen instruments. Only in this case, these are special instruments. They, according to Jimmy, basically, they basically have every conceivable note downloaded into them, and they link up to the thoughts of whoever is using them. So basically... If you play the instrument, as long as you can think about what music you want to come out of the instrument will produce it. So, yeah, basically Jimmy and his friends are going to cheat in the talent contest. Because that's where this is. It's pretty much just cheating. No actual talent, just cheating. But they do seem to coordinate well enough with each other that they actually do start kind of forming a nice little garage band. And as such, since they're now a band, they think, well, we need a band name, and as a compromise between all three of them, they call themselves the Llama Lords of Science. And they actually do perform well, as enough kids end up coming to their garage and end up rocking out to their sound, and even Cindy's like, oh shit, they might actually win this, I gotta step up my game, and so she and Libby begin practicing like crazy. Unfortunately, though, Jimmy and his friends start getting big heads about this whole thing as they think, wow, I'm amazing. I bet I could be the best. And as such, they start butting heads as their egos all begin clashing as they think that the band would be nothing without them. And they basically think that, oh, you guys are holding me back. I deserve a solo. I'm the best at this, blah-bitty-blah-bitty-blah. Point is, they're just getting on each other's nerves, even though none of them have any real talent, but these are kids. I think I'm going to let this slide. As such, the day of the talent competition comes up, and, well, the internal strife continues growing as both Carl and Sheen end up arriving late for practice, with Sheen arriving 5 minutes before they're supposed to go on, and Carl arriving with basically a lady who's supposed to be helping him with his image, to the point where he has a snooty, uptight accent and these weird sunglasses, his hair down. He basically looks like he's one of the Beatles. Point is, they're just trying to create drama where none exists, and as a result, Jimmy and his friends end up having a falling out, telling them that if it wasn't for his as Jimmy tells his friends that if it wasn't for his instruments, they wouldn't have a band. And so, of course, as a result, Carl and Sheen ended up taking all the instruments and chucking them out a nearby window. So, they all just shot themselves in the foot. Thankfully, Jimmy's dad comes in, which is actually a nice running gag, which reminds me of the airplane gag with the, oh, I just want to tell you, good luck, we're all counting on you. As Hugh comes in and says, hey guys, good luck tonight, remember, have fun with it. I love that. And as such, that gets Jimmy, and that brings Jimmy back down to earth enough that he realizes that this whole thing is stupid. And he tells Carl and Sheen that they basically they've been letting this whole thing get to their heads, and they need to remember the whole reason why they started this band thing in the first place. To beat Cindy and Libby. Unfortunately, though, they can't play any songs now. The instruments were literally the source of their talent. So without them, what can they do? Well, Jimmy has a workaround. Basically, they're going to do what Carl wanted to do. As Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen go up on stage, and with his inhaler in hand, Carl ends up blowing a massive snot bubble. And it's apparently so massive that it actually lifts Carl, Jimmy, and Sheen right off of the stage. And at first, everyone in the crowd is like, "Oh wow, that actually looks cool," and actually starts applauding them until the bubble explodes, and it's a snot bubble. You can do the math. As such, we then cut to after the competition, and Jimmy and his friends got 8th place in a competition that apparently only had 7 acts. So yeah, you gotta suck hard to do that. But point is, Jimmy thinks that, yeah, they may have lost the competition, but their friendship is intact. They just probably shouldn't be in a band together. Unfortunately, though, that good mood kind of gets soured as Cindy and Libby come in, as, yeah, they won, and immediately start rubbing it in Jimmy's face, and the episode ends as Jimmy tells them that they just wait till next year, the Llama Lords of Science will kick their ass, and immediately Jimmy and his friends start bickering again, so go figure, but... yeah, so what are my thoughts on these segments? Well, I think I can actually give a blanket opinion on both segments. This is silly fun, and I loved every second of it. Both of these segments are just silly, goofy, and just kind of dumb, but the fun dumb. The one that you can just sit back and laugh at the insanity and goofiness, and it's just fun. I like it. I think both are fun. The Jimmy on Ice segment is definitely just where they is definitely where they wanted to get outlandish with the premise, and I think it works with it because yeah, you have to ignore logic in a few areas, but the gags I think more than make up for it. I think it's just fun seeing everyone I think it's fun seeing what they do with the whole Retroville is now basically in an Ice Age thing. I love seeing everyone just so quickly devolve into a more tribalistic mindset, as it's just like, it happens just like that. It's like, first day, everyone's fine, it's just normal winter weather. Suddenly the whole town, the next day when the town's in an Ice Age, literally the first thing we see from Jimmy's dad is after he and Judy end up chewing Jimmy out, he's like, well, gotta go hunt caribou so we have food on the table. It's like, they immediately jump into being primal and being just this tribalistic mindset. It's just so stupid, but I can't help but love it. And another guy that I did not talk about in the plot summary, apparently there was a warning on the sunblock not to quantum enhance it, which means that someone had to think of this exact scenario and basically had to tell everyone, yeah, don't do this. And I'm just thinking, what set of circumstances would make the manufacturers look at this and think, what if some genius kid out there decided to quantum enhance this and send it out into the atmosphere? We better put a warning label on that. It wasn't a prominent warning label, but the fact that that had to be put on the bottle means that someone thought this would happen, and I love that. It's great. It's so dumb, but I love that. And again, seeing all of Retroville just devolve into this more primitive mindset, it's just funny. It's honest to God funny. And seeing Jimmy as the only sane one in all this craziness is just a ton of laughs. I love that even when some people try to maintain some form of sanity, and semblance of common sense, it's just that again, they just immediately devolve. Like I said, it's proposed that Jimmy be sacrificed to the glacier because by Sheen of all people, and Miss Fowl tries to maintain order in her class, but then she sees the temperature even drop lower than 30 below, and she's just like, "Hey, boy, to glacier!" Like, god damn, that happened fast. It's just so unbelievably dumb, but it's the joyous dumb. It's the fun dumb. It's charming. It's enjoyable. It's one where you can just turn off your brain and laugh at the insanity. Hell, the running gag throughout the episode of Cindy just adamantly refusing to leave her pool, even though the temperature keeps dropping like a fucking cinder block, is just great. Like, the entire episode, we do not see her anywhere but her pool. First scene, of course she's in the pool. It's hot out. Second scene, it's snowing. She's still stubbornly in there. Third scene, the thing is frozen over, and she's still there. It's great. I love it. It's great. And by the end, when Jimmy basically has to use the sweat of these three husky guys to basically dispel the clouds he created, it's actually a pretty creative scenario, but I still ask the question, where the hell did he get that aerosol can? I do not know. It's just something he has. It has his logo on it. I don't know. Why is that the hardest thing for me to buy in the episode? I don't understand it. I don't know. No, point is, it's silly and enjoyable, and I just love every second of it. And like I said, that same compliment can be applied to Battle of the Band. I love seeing Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen just immediately go at each other's throats the instant they gain even a modicum of popularity. It's like, yeah, it's like they make a band because they want to compete with Cindy and Libby, but like, they do what kids kind of do in that scenario and think, wow, I got a little talent. I could be a star. And I just find that so enjoyable, how quickly they turn on each other. Even though, well, I gotta give credit where it's due here. It's all really Jimmy. They would not be able to do what they do without Jimmy. He created the instruments. The instruments are the source of their quote-unquote talent. And likewise, without those instruments, they'd just be a bunch of dumb kids. But I love that. I love seeing how quickly these three turn on each other and just go for each other's throats. I love how they all immediately think, oh, I could be a star if I just ditched these other two. I find that so enjoyably dumb, and just seeing it come to a zen with them starting to intentionally try and start fights among them because they think they can be rock stars is so enjoyably dumb. I especially love the gags with Hugh in the episode. Like I said, I already told you about the gag that was basically felt like a callback to Airplane with Hugh popping in and wishing Jimmy and his friends good luck, and it was the exact same line every time, and he always comes into the same angle, even if it's somehow impossible. Like the first two times he says it, it's in the garage, and he comes in from the garage door that leads into Jimmy's house. But the third time he does it, Jimmy and his friends are in a classroom, and he pops in through a window. And then when he exits out, it's clear that he took a fall because the classroom is on the second floor of the school. I don't know. I like that. That's great. I find that to be funny. I find that to be enjoyable. So that, and likewise, another gag with Hugh, the talent competition. Apparently, it was a free thing that the school was doing, so nobody had to buy any tickets. Well, apparently Hugh didn't get the memo because a scalper caught him and said, yeah, $120 for the receipts. And Hugh fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. I love that. I love that. And even by the end, when everything kind of blew up in their face and they got an 8th place trophy in a competition that had 7 acts, it's enjoyable. And I love the fact that even when the implication of them forming a band again comes back up, all of them, despite having learned the lesson of, I don't want to fight with you guys, immediately just go back to being egotists. It's great. It's just great. And again, it's them being dumb kids, but it's the enjoyable kind of dumb kids. Like, you can excuse the stupid here. These are just dumbass kids that just got in a little over their heads, and it's enjoyable. It doesn't make me hate them. It's just kids being kids, and I can't fault them for that. So like I said, overall, I think both of the segments for this episode are just enjoyably stupid. Yeah, they're kind of dumb, but it's the kind of dumb where you can just sit back and just have fun with it. It's a great time all around overall. Just an enjoyable episode, so yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.